I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days.
All right,
good
welcome
and
to
bad.
Warrior versus Zombie, another episode, and I'm excited to share another amazing warrior with you, Frank Zaccari. And I'll introduce him in a second, but before we get started, I want to remind you, if you've been with us before, what Warrior versus Zombie is all about. And if you're new, now you'll know what you're getting into. So success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that make us who we are today and provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, authors, any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest, Frank Zaccari, is no exception. He's an incredible warrior. His warrior journey began with serving as a military medic in the U.S. Air Force before he spent over 25 years in the high-tech industry, holding senior positions with Fortune 50 organizations, relaunched small and mid-sized companies. And then he enjoyed roles in that time of finance, organizational development, sales, marketing, branding, production, negotiation, startup procedures, people, and success. Sounds like we have some similar overlap there, Frank. Looking to connect there after becoming a single custodial parent, as we talked about before. I've had that experience as well. Frank left the high-tech industry to be home to raise his children. He then created, managed, and sold one of the most profitable insurance agencies in Northern California. And today, Frank is a best-selling author, has written and published 6 books. His book, Business Secrets for Walking on Water, reached #1 best-selling new release in one day. He also leads a workshop for inspiring entrepreneurs at Arizona State University. He's a mentor with the Veterans Treatment Court, a mentor and a judge with the University of California Entrepreneurship Academy, and is an accomplished speaker. Frank was the host of an internet radio show and is now the TV host of the Life Altering Events Roku channel, where over 200,000 people in 42 countries have heard or seen his shows. He has one channel named Life Altering Events. I believe we can also enjoy that on the Be Connected platform, which we'll talk about in a second. And I've just added a second category called Business Secrets for Walking on Water. Frank's messages focus on it is never too late to have the life you want and desire. Frank Zaccari, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How's things in your neck of the woods today?
Things are wonderful, and I appreciate you having me on. I'm very excited to talk to you. We have a lot of similarities, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So are you in California, Southern California today? Is that
I'm in San Diego. Yes, I go between San Diego and Scottsdale, Arizona. I have 2 houses. Well, this one's my wife's house. I have one in Scottsdale. And every month we go between the 2.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting lifestyle. So how's things been in your world over the last year? It's interesting. I started this is episode 52, and through from the beginning and going through, we kind of like, well, so how are you dealing with COVID today? How are you dealing with the riots? What's going on? Are you locked down? Are you opened up? All these kind of check-in segments. But
Yes.
is the world reasonably calm? I know California is kind of wonky. And I don't know and I know Arizona, may or may not. So what's that world kind of look like?
Well, the world's good. San Diego, where I am, is whether you're pro or con against vaccine, but San Diego is one of the highest vaccine rates in the country. And it's simply a matter of being smart. Okay, you just don't do stupid things. Don't go around people who are sick. Don't, just be smart. Arizona is a different place. They're still in the wild west out there, and it's the same thing. You just have to make smart choices This virus is here. It's not going to go away. There's going to keep having these issues. So it's like everything else in life. You just have to deal with it. Figure out what's the best approach. Be smart. Make good decisions, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I love that. When I'm generally speaking, when I talk to warriors who and entrepreneurs and all, we're all kind of finding our own way. We've learned that it's up. If it's going to be, it's up to me. We kind of have to navigate the waters, and we're not looking to be, controlled or owned or a victim or anything else. And like you say, I often say, I've taken control of my own personal wellness, been on a wellness journey. My vision is to live to 120 with the vitality of a 30-year-old. And you gotta, you can't run from the virus. You can't keep, you can't. They're out there. You're going to get a cold. You're going to get the flu. The severity of that. You've got to take care of yourself in the meantime. And so, yeah, it's a personal responsibility thing. I like being treated like an adult. I don't like, as you say, Wild West and vaccinated and all that stuff. To me, and we won't get into that too much, but I just believe that one of the things I learned in my own wellness journey was it wasn't the things that I didn't know that were killing me. It was the things that I thought I knew that just weren't true. And there's a lot of those in Western medicine where we looking for a magic shot, a magic pill, a magic anything else that absolve us of personal responsibility of really taking care of ourselves on a day-to-day basis, not smoking, not overeating, managing our diet, eating healthy food, eating clean food, drinking clean water, staying fully hydrated, all these things, right? I mean, those are all things that we can control, and we can't just keep doing all the bad things and then expect a vaccine or a pill of any kind, therapeutic, to recover us, right? If you're doing it bad on a day-to-day basis, as the song in this podcast says, it's a journey every day. It's not a one-shot deal. So I love that about you. I love that about what you just said. And let's do this. I could go off on that, and we could do a whole show on that. But what I really want to get to is I want to hear your story and then talk about some things that you're doing today. But I want to first talk about some of those things that we shared in your story about how you got from where you started to where you are today. So let's take a quick break. We'll hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright and our theme song, It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be right back with Frank Zaccari and Warrior versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, we're back. And Frank, I know we kind of got off on a little bit there, but I thought that was an interesting check-in, and I loved your perspective there, and having, the Wild West and the California focus and comparing those two. I'm in Dallas, and I guess I would qualify as being in the Wild West, as you are in Arizona. But so, as I said before the break, share with our warriors your story. How did you get from where you started to where you are today?
I was born in Western New York, outside of Buffalo, and it was a steel town when everything was steel when I was growing up. And my biggest fear in life was basically I was going to work in a steel mill my whole life, and that just was not going to happen. So I was, from like age 6, I was plotting, how am I going to get out of here? And what I thought was going to be the exit was baseball. I was a fairly good player. I got a tryout with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And as they said, there's only one thing preventing you from becoming a professional athlete, Frank. And I said, what's that? And they said, lack of skill. So that was pretty much, the dream is gone at age 17, 18. Remember the military lottery? I think we're both old enough to remember that. Well, my lottery number was 10. So I was going to be either drafted into in the army and go to Vietnam, or I could enlist in another branch and possibly avoid that. But the difference was back then, if you were drafted, you had to spend 2 years. If you enlisted, you had to spend 4. So I enlisted in the Air Force as a medic. And it was one of the best experiences of my life because it changed everything at a very young age. I had to learn how to collaborate because in the military, like big business, we both came from the big corporate world. Nothing gets done if you follow all the rules. You have to find ways to maneuver within the system. So in the military at age 21, I think, the hospital commander came to me and he says, we want you to run a pediatric clinic. Now this is 90 sick children a day. And I said, well, my rank is, I don't have the rank position for that. And he says, yeah, well, nobody else wants the job. Okay. So he says, we want you to take it. And so I did. And then we couldn't find people that wanted to work in a pediatric clinic. So the commander, I love this man. He said, Frank, we're going to go meet with the Red Cross and we're going to find volunteers. All right. Now, 21 years old. Now I have to learn, why am I doing this? How are we going to do this? What do we do? Because volunteers don't have to show up. They don't have to come back, and they don't have to give you a reason. Like in the military, you have no choice. You got to show up. So we had to create this collaborative model, and I had to learn how to do that at a very early age. Now, when I got out of the military, that served me very well because I got into the tech world with a company, NCR, which at the time wanted to be more of a computer company. And I was put in charge of a group to go after a multi-million-dollar procurements. Well, NCR just makes equipment. They don't have a solution. So you do the same thing I learned in the military. Where do you find the database? Where's the application people? Where are the network people? Who's an industry expert that we can bring into the fold? So we would put together these tiger teams, in effect, to attack an opportunity and hopefully win. And then the tiger team would stay and execute. Then I had people on the ground. We called them bird dogs, for lack of a better name. Get the bird in the air. Once we identify it, then we'll bring the team in and win. So that worked out very well. We had a very successful run. AT&T bought NCR. It was a funny story. At NCR, my title was Director of Government, right? And everything's an acronym in high tech. AT&T comes in and they meet with me and they say, okay, you're gonna do 24 states, 25 states, half the country, and you're gonna be Government Operation Director. And I said, you might want to rethink the name. And the guy says to me, you've been here with us, what, 15 minutes and you want to change things? And so I wrote it down. Director of Government, DOG. Government Operation Director, GOD. And he burst out laughing. He said, I don't give a damn. Call yourself whatever you want. So on my door, they had Frank Zaccari, God, GOD. That was pretty interesting. So I stayed in the high-tech world for a long time. Did very, very well. It was one of those things, when you know what you're doing and you know you can get an answer very quickly, and you're like the go-to guy, the go-to person, and things went very well. We moved up to Seattle. I was CEO of 2 companies in Seattle. One that brought me in to relaunch them, and then I spun an entity out of that. And I thought, I'm on the top of the world. Look at this. Everything's great. And I turn around and my wife left. So that was like, okay, now what? Now I have 2 young daughters. She just left. And now I have custody of these 2 little girls. And I can't be gone 2 weeks out of every month anymore. Those days are over. So it's a big decision time. It was probably my zombie period. Now what do I do? Oh my God. Having never been a teenage girl, that was going to be a big challenge. So we moved back to Sacramento, California, where my children were born. And I thought I had a better support group. And I took over an insurance agency. Now, when you go from high tech, you know this, very proactive industry, to insurance, very reactive industry. It's like dying and going to hell. But it was I had to take care of my daughters. So so I didn't want to be stuck in this industry that I didn't particularly care for. So it was going to be a point in time. There's a purpose here. The purpose is I got to get these children through school. I got to get them employed. And then once that happens, when my youngest daughter graduated from Arizona State, I sold it. I sold the business. And it got a good number for it. So I said, well, I don't have to do anything, but what am I going to do when I grow up? We then moved into, started working with some nonprofits like we all do when we get out of the world. And you realize nonprofits, and some are wonderful. They're wonderful people, but they tend not to close the loop. They want to get money. Here's money. Okay, what happened with the money? How many people did? What happened to the people you were serving? And I say, well, this isn't going to work real well. I got a radio show with voiceamerica.com, like everybody else in the world does. And I started meeting a lot of people who were interested in the relationship side of life, as opposed to just a corporate hard charging, win at all costs kind of a thing. That changed everything. The perspective on everything changed. And we started to look at, okay, what are we going to do? What am I going to do that's going to bring some kind of value to the world? I made a lot of money for a lot of people over the time, just like you did. And now what? Okay, I look at the bigger picture in the world and see all the divisiveness that's going on out there. And I firmly have believed for years that there's more in the world that unites us than what divides us. And so I want to be one of those uniters. And that's what I'm trying to move forward on. I ran into, I met a woman named Kathleen O'Keefe Canavas, who is now my publisher. And I interviewed her a few times on my radio show and TV show. And she said to me, Frank, you've written at that time 5 books. I just wrote books. I was dealing with my kids. I wasn't going to lay awake at night stressing out. So between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., I'd go write. And I self-published 5 books. Got good reviews, didn't sell many. So Kathleen said, Frank, you write real well, you speak real well, you need to write another book. And I said, well, it hasn't been a good experience, Kat. She said, well, it's going to change. And so we put together, collaboration and wrote the book Business Secrets for Walking on Water, which is the first of a 3-book series that's about business secrets. And so I had no idea what to expect, put the plan together. It released on June 29th, and at 3:00 in the afternoon, it hit bestseller. And I was stunned. I didn't know, oh my God, it was like, wow, this actually really did happen. And that led to a number of speaking engagements and being able to meet someone like you and be connected people. With the second book, came out a pre-order on November 18th, and it made bestseller. First day. Now, maybe December 7th or 8th or 9th, whatever, the hard copy book is going to be released. So it's a very exciting time. And it's this, and the people you start meeting when you start down this path are just phenomenal. It's just a very different attitude. They've all had success at some point in their life, but maybe something was missing. In my case, I was very successful professionally, but I was not very good at relationships. It just did not go well. And, even from high school, just did not go well with relationships. After my wife left, I was not interested in anything until my daughters were on their own. So we just stayed away from everything. And one of the things I discovered, and I've put it in both of the books, is you cannot separate the personal life and the professional life. If one is not doing well, it is going to impact the other. Now, growing up when I did, life was, you do whatever you got to do. I was born in 1953. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. You do what you have to do. You put in the time, you put in the hours. If you're successful professionally, your family life will be wonderful. And that doesn't work. It flat does not work. And even when you're home, when you're working on these massive projects, you weren't present. That's the statement I heard many, many times. You're physically here, but you're really not here. And so part of the business secrets for walking on water is understanding that you don't have to be working 24 hours a day. You don't have to come home now that we've got all the technology and jump on Zoom or get on the phone. Or you don't have to do that. You have to learn, all right, this is my schedule. I'm going to delegate stuff out. I'm going to be surround yourself with people who are better than you are. And once that finally dawned on me that that's the answer. If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. So let's find people in various areas who excel and are way better than I am. And then I would just sit and I could be the director. And all of a sudden, life started to get better. I wasn't stressed out. I still have 2 teenage daughters, so we were dealing, that's a whole different kind of stress, but we seem to manage that well. And now we've got to the point where again, the second book will be out maybe next week, and we've submitted the third book already for the series. And it's an exciting time. Meeting Be Connected, and Tanya, and Heshi, I guess everybody has to meet Heshi. She's wonderful. Has opened up so many more doors. And what I've found is that there's so many people that will help you if you ask for it. And for so many years, I didn't do that. I'm smart. I'll figure it out. I can handle it. And you try to Lone Ranger it. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, your temperament changes. You don't even like yourself. Nobody wants to be around you, and you're just not a nice person.
Yeah. Well, that's actually. It sounds like we're getting real close to today, and I want to take a breath, and a break here, and hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright. But before we do, I want to highlight or put a exclamation mark on a few things you said. First of all, in your own way, you've learned through your journey, which I also did, coming out of the corporate world. A lot of times, collaboration is more competition. Even when you're in the same company, you feel like you can't be open, you can't admit that you need help, because if you do, there's just all this unsafe space that we're used to swimming in. There was a joke or a thing I used to read called Swimming with Sharks, and don't bleed, right? It's just that was the key. You can't do that, and that's one of the most fascinating things that you said along there is you could do things, you could write books. By the way, I may need to collaborate with you on how to make that happen. I'm in the throes of trying to get mine done, and perfection is always an obstacle to progress. So I'm trying to get through that, and I'm not one. I'm more of a social animal. So your challenge of bridging out was not mine. I was more staying focused and kind of moving forward, as all warriors need to do. So you've learned some things there, but I just think the brilliance of what you said can be kind of summarized into life as a team sport. And you've been a writer, you were successful, you were a unintended single dad. You learned some things about relationships on your journey. And the thing that I love about warriors is, as we learn things and we're blessed by those things, or we've overcome them, we have a desire generally, whether it's to create a show, a podcast, a consulting process, or just even a church, right? To help people that are coming behind us to not make the same mistakes we did. And that's one of the things that I heard in what you're saying. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I want to get to the next segment where we can talk about where you are today. There's obviously great lessons that you're bringing forward into today, and then talk about why you're doing what you're doing today, the unique value you provide. If anything were possible, what kind of impact would you like to have? So let's take a quick break, hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright. It's not to getting there, and we'll be right back with Frank Zaccari and Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth are always.
All right, we are back, and Frank, wow, I mean, you and I have about the same length of journey, by the way. And so I know trying to get through all the lessons, and one of the most overwhelming parts of when you're talking about your story There's so much story to talk about that there's, I'm sure, many things that you could have shared with us. And which is another reason why in the next segment we hear about how to stay in touch with you. I'm going to recommend that people connect with you and so on. But let's talk about why you're doing what you're doing today, and as you see it, the unique value you provide, and if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have?
Sure, I'd love to. One of the things that I found, someone interviewed me one time and they said, Frank, your superpower is relaunching organizations. Okay, we used to call them turnarounds, right? We can't do that anymore because it offends people. So it's like the relaunching. So as I'm going through this journey and I'm meeting all these people who are looking at there's got to be a better way, I run into Gabby Ori, who is now my partner, and we said, what if we looked at an opportunity where we could create something in the wellness space, as you said earlier at the beginning, at the top of the show. So we started meeting with some MD doctors, medical doctors who are frustrated. And they said, look, the system's broken. It just doesn't flat out work. And we're not curing, we're treating. And we've got people taking pills for 38 years and they're not any better. Okay. So as we started meeting, then we met with some psychologists and some energy healers and some transformational people. And we said, okay, let's start moving forward on this concept, this idea of creating a series of wellness centers, which would be a combination of MD doctors and then all the integrative medicine, acupuncture, tapping, hypnotherapy, whatever basically the individual needs. And we said, look at this, in our mind, there were basically 5 foundations for good health. And for a lot of it, you look at it, it's obvious, but they say, well, eat better. Well, what's that mean? What's eat better mean? Okay, you're 40 years old, you've been eating this way. You're not going to change. It's not going to happen. So what one thing can we do to make it better, to take that next step? There's little tiny steps. It's a baby step kind of a model moving forward. So as we started to put that together, which we're still in the process of doing, we run into a gentleman named Maury Zalkovich up in Toronto, Canada. And Maury is a brain entrainment engineer. He may be one of the only ones in the world who's a brain entrainment engineer. And he has a program, he calls it the Maury Method, that will help, through sound and vibration, help recreate the neural pathways in your brain. All right. One of the things that we all do is we make the same mistakes over and over. All right. It's a subconscious, unconscious bias, whatever term you happen to like. There's a pattern. And I found that my pattern, yes, I had a pattern. As one psychologist told me, Frank, in relationships, you're terrible because your picker, got to be very careful how you say that, your picker is broken. You pick the same, you're following the same pattern. So until you break that mindset, until you change that, you're going to continue to follow the same path. So we meet with Maury, and I've talked to a number of people in this brain entrainment world, and it's well, you come to my clinic, you come here for 5 days, you spend time here, it costs $25,000, plus you got to get here, plus you got to spend 5 days here. And I said, well, for the average individual, even someone who's had success in their life, that's not going to work, because who's going to put up $25,000 and spend 5 days in the clinic? So as I said and talked to Maury, I said, well, what do you need? And his answer was, you have a headset, you have headphones that you can put over your ears. I said, yeah. And he said, you got a chair? I said, yeah. And that's all you need. And put the headphones on, be in a quiet place and listen. And then through the vibrations and the sound and the words and stuff, it helps with relaxation. It helps to create new neural pathways in your brain. It's been tested with the Jamaican army. It's been tested in Brazil. It's been tested with Dr. Dale, and I always forget his last name, Bresnan, I think it is, who wrote The End of Alzheimer's, and he has even used that in his book, using this kind of a model and method. So as my partners and I are looking at this, we said, that's where we want to go. So let's relaunch the Maury Method in the United States to become a US corporation, and then relaunch it so it becomes bigger internationally. And then these wellness centers, this whole model is right now we have a number of, just in Phoenix last week, and meeting with a gastroenterologist and her partner who does the holistic nutrition side. So they're attempting to do this, right? But there's so many battles because big pharmacy doesn't want this to happen, and insurance doesn't really particularly care one way or another. They don't really care about this model. So it's got to be something that comes from the ground up. So it's going to be an education process and putting together, the collaboration, again, just like you said earlier, putting together the marketing organization and the people who see this makes sense. This is something that's going to be for the overall good, not just for a few, but this is something that can go national and international. So that's what the challenge is at the moment. And that's where we're investing a lot of time and energy. And it's exciting. I haven't been this excited in years of what the potential could be with something like this. And what's really interesting to me is the medical doctors, who are some of the best trained people in the world. I mean, they're so highly educated. And I did an interview with one a couple of days ago, and she said, here's what they don't teach you in med school. They don't teach you how to learn the whole person, because you only have like 10, 15 minutes, because you got to ram these people through. Reimbursements are constantly going down for the doctors. And and so many of them have to give up their practices, right? It's just they're being bought or merged or leaving, and they might just leave the industry completely. And so I asked her, in the perfect world, what would you do? She said, well, I want to know what's the underlying cause. And what I'm finding, and it should be obvious, the underlying cause of a lot of what's going on is stress and trauma at some point. Now, when did the stress occur? How did it occur? Why did it occur? One of our doctors had said to me, Frank, I'm dealing with some people with weight problems, maybe obesity or almost obesity. And he said he was talking to that individual, and they said, when did this happen? What occurred? And this was a young woman, and she said, well, she was sexually assaulted in her preteen life. And the connection was, if I'm young and attractive, then this is going to keep happening. And so this was a defense mechanism, which then led to all these health-related problems that are going on over and over and over. And it was, well, what are you even doing? He said, well, we've been giving her pills. Try this, try this. Well, if this doesn't work, don't worry about it, because there's 5 other pills in this category that we can put you on, and you'll spend the rest of your life taking medication that may never help you. I mean, it's going to treat you and you may feel better, but it's not going to be a long-term. This is not the solution. And when I was in the tech world, I traveled extensively overseas, and I didn't quite see the same kind of model overseas in Switzerland and in Sweden and in Germany. They didn't. And they were looking more at how do I cure something,
right,
as opposed to how do I treat something. And also, like in Holland and with the Swiss and the Swedes, what's the root cause?
right.
Okay. And if you peel back the onion and you see that root cause, and it's more times than not, it's going to be stress and trauma. Okay, well, let's see if we can address that. How do we take care of that?
Yeah. So Frank, let me say this: we're more aligned than you can possibly imagine, and I've been on my own. I think I mentioned I've been on my own wellness journey. The thing about our mind, body, and spirit all being part of the equation in terms of our overall wellness, understanding the root cause. I'm known as the Vision Warrior, and one of my clients / partners, Dr. Ronit Moore, is a naturopathic doctor, and Dr. Russell Skinner is an MD. We have a group of 50 practitioners in the Dallas-Fort Worth area from all walks of the wellness spectrum. I'm actually in the spiritual category of it's called mywellbeingcompass.com. And so I am totally aligned. We can, in fact, after this show, we need to talk about potentially creating another show to engage some of these practitioners in the kinds of conversations that are obviously energizing you. And I would have to say that I personally was also, maybe it's the stage of life that we're both in and our own journeys that that inspire us to get excited about this type of thing. But like I said before, it's the thing. It's I think, I don't know if it was before or after we started, but it's the things that not that I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's not the things that I didn't know. It's just in Western medicine, we're a very symptom based process of identifying a symptom, and then the pharmaceuticals say, here's a pill to fix that. Well, the problem is the pill creates 5 other symptoms. And so if you're not careful, like my 90-year-old mother, you're taking a whole handful of pills several times a day, trying to be normal, if you will. When normal isn't normal, it's just common, but really normal is like I am today, 70 pounds lighter, no pharmaceuticals to take on a regular basis. And, my body age at my age, which is very close to yours,
Yeah.
about 42. So, I'm working on 120 with a vitality of a 30-year-old. Well, so Frank, I hear the passion. I understand why you're doing what you're doing to a degree. Real quick before we end this segment and come back to the next, what would the impact? What does the future look like for you if anything were possible? And by the way, I believe anything is possible. So what would that look like?
Well, I've got 2 tracks that I've sort of created in my head. One of the tracks is I want to speak more. I want to have more speaking engagements, which are starting to happen, and working on the business secret model. So there's the secrets for walking on water, the secrets for avoiding landmines, the secrets for getting unstuck, that kind of process. The second parallel path is this wellness model, is moving forward on that. And I'm not a doctor and I'm not a practitioner. And so I want to be more of the orchestrator, the collaborator, the bringing the people together. We started, well, today we went public with, and it'll be up on Be Connected here soon, interview with one of the MD doctors who, and his topic was, are we treating the wrong thing? Mm-hmm. And so we've got a series of those already lined up. And what I think would, and if anything were possible in the world, and I really like you, yes, everything is possible, that we will create, not me alone, but in this collaborative model, we will create the ultimate wellness operation. It might be like a whole nother segmentation. Now, there's a lot of battles here. Is med school going to teach doctors how to do this? Yes or no? No, they're not. Okay. Is a pharmaceutical company is going to say, oh, this is great. No, they're not. The insurance company, no, they're not. But what occurs to me, having been a corporate executive like you, having been a CEO, you can't keep paying these outrageous fees. You cannot keep doing it. Okay, it's just not going to work. So at some point, it's going to all come crashing down. And from what I see happening is this is where corporate America can be a major player. We corporate America are going to demand that we have these kind of options and alternatives. Now, years ago, when I was at NCR, I was in South Carolina. We had 1,400 people at this manufacturing facility. And we brought in the insurance carrier, and well, they need to do the typical nonsense that the insurance carriers give you. And we said, we have 1,400 people. If we can get 10% of this base into some kind of a health and fitness program, we want lower rates. And the guy said, yeah, sure, fine, no problem. So we got 700 people into some kind of a program, be it a walking program, a diet, understanding diet program, some kind of stress release, some of the tapping before it was real popular as it is today, social connectivity, some of the people who were sort of like shrinking violets, let's get them in a group where they can there's some kind of connection together. And then the spiritual side, not necessarily religion, going to church, but tying into something greater than yourself. Mm-hmm. And we had this amazing things. We were charting it. And we said, look, Our burnout rate is way down. Our sick days are way down. Okay, people taking time off because of stress are way down. Okay, something's happening here. And part of it was, well, you created a culture. Yeah, you did create a culture, but you also looked at people as people and
Right.
not machines and not interchangeable parts, which when I came up and you came up in the corporate world, that was pretty much the way it was, right? You don't likely get the hell out. There's 700 people and take your job, do it tomorrow, probably do it better than you can, right? But that model has to change. And I interviewed a gentleman named Dr. Edward Hess, and he's a futurist at the University of Virginia at the Darden School. And he has said, going forward, here's the organizations that are going to survive. They're going to have to become more humanistic. They're going to have to get into emotional intelligence. They're going to have to learn how to collaborate, because the younger people coming up are not going to put up with the nonsense that we put up with because we didn't know any better. Okay, we thought this was the right way to do it, but it wasn't. And when I met with a group of younger than the millennials, I guess the Gen Zers, in a talk I gave in Phoenix, and they said, if we don't like the way things are going, we'll just leave.
Right.
And we'll leave in the middle of the day.
Sure.
And I said, well, that's not responsible. And I said, hey, look, responsibility and loyalty goes both ways. Okay. And right now, I think the people who have to change, as Dr. Hess told me, it's not the people coming up that have to change. It's you, the leaders. You have to change. You have to understand that this matters. And you have to put them in a position that's safe, number one. They got to feel safe, and they're valued, and they're heard, and that you're providing programs for them that impacts them as an individual, as a human.
Yeah, and I think that what you're identifying is some challenges as well as a vision of impact. And again, I'm very aligned with you on that. So I see a whole nother, maybe we can co-host another show and get into this stuff, because I've kind of set it aside, but I'm into the mindset place a lot, and into the business space, but we can really make an impact. And there's so many challenges around that, and so much, against that kind of movement. Creating a movement that you envision could be a beautiful thing. So let's do this. Let's take one quick break, and when we come back from the break, what I want, Frank, is for you to share with the audience, if we take away anything from this discussion, which has been a great discussion, what 1, 2, or 3 things would you want us to take away, either that you've talked about before or maybe we haven't gotten to? And then the last thing will be, how do we stay in touch? And then we'll land the plane, as I said. All right, so let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Frank Zaccari and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always 2 different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God.
All right, we are back. And I didn't give you a lot of time there, Frank, but I know you've got a lot of stuff to share. So, as I said before the break, what 1 or 2 things, or 3? I mean, I started out when I started this podcast saying, give me 1, and Warriors are overachievers, so have to give me, 1 or 2 or 3, so whatever. But the point is, if we take away anything from this discussion, what would you like us to take away?
I think there's a couple of points. Number one is surround yourself with people who will help you grow. In other words, people that are better than you are in their area of expertise. When you surround yourself in that kind of environment, your odds of success in whatever it is you're doing go up dramatically. One of the things we put in all the books was, do you know what you don't know? And people look at me, what do you mean? I didn't know what. How do you know? How does that happen? I said, well, as soon as you start down a path and you're uncertain, that's what you don't know. So who are people that can help you? I hear so many people say, well, how do I do this? And I said, you're asking the wrong question. It's not how do I do it? It's who can I find to help me do this? That's the question we should be asking. So that's one point. The second point is make time to have balance in your life, to have your professional life and your personal life not clashing and not having one being more important to you than the other one. Because believe me, getting to the top of the mountain and turning around and having all this success and then finding you have a shattered life is not worth the title or the money or the prestige. It's not. Those would be my takeaways.
And those are beautiful takeaways. And in fact, I think we both have learned here that we've experienced the result of valuing the wrong things and not being balanced in our focus. As when I do the vision challenge, I depict it as a wheel. And it doesn't matter where the hole is in the everything either inspires us or expires us, adds energy or depletes us. And if your personal life or your health or your finances or anything are, expiring, the other things are hard to be successful, and forcing through that without taking care of those and creating that balance is frankly one of those things that can break us. So that's a beautiful thing. So Frank, I know the main way and the way we connected is to reach out to you. If there are people listening to this, if you're part of the Be Connected community, you can look up Frank Zaccari. I know that that's a great way to connect with him because that's the way I connected with him. And I'm excited about the possibilities going forward with that. But Frank, and I know you've got some books out there, so share with us any other ways that we can stay connected to Frank Zaccari.
Sure. You can send me email, which is just my name, frankzaccari@gmail. I have a website, frankzaccari.com. Try to keep it simple. Of course, we have the Facebook and the LinkedIn, those types of things. Be Connected is a great way to touch base with each other because the tentacles, for lack of a better word, or the web is so powerful. And you meet people like you, and you meet people who are saying, "Wow, we're in sync on some of this stuff, and we've had enough experience that we could probably pull this off." Mm-hmm. So those are the best contacts. We do some workshops now based off of the books because every one of the books has a workbook built in, and then speaking engagements, which I love doing. I like the ones live better, but I've had to do, as we all did, probably 14 or 16 or 18 virtual ones around the world, and it's just exciting. I'm at a point in my life where I am so looking forward to where we're going, as opposed to someone told me, "Frank, you're 68 years old. You should be sitting in a rocking chair playing golf." And I'm like, no, I am more energetic now than I was back in my 30s. Because we're going to make some magic happen here.
Well, and I love that, Frank. And again, we're very aligned in that. As I say, retirement, I retired 16 years ago from corporate America, but it's not doing nothing. In fact, if you really do the research, which it sounds like you do in the wellness space, if you step away from your life purpose and retire the way most people think of retirement, your life expectancy on average is 6 years. So I've been retired for 16. And so what that means is you never give up on your life purpose and your impact, and you may have to rethink it. And that's part of what I do with the Vision Challenge. Sounds like that's a lot of what's in your book, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. Well, I would encourage our audience to reach out to Frank. He's got a much more unique name than David Roberts. There's plenty of us out there, but Frank Zaccari, I don't, David Roberts at gmail.com. That wouldn't happen. It's so, but Frank Zaccari, which is Zaccari, and Frank is pretty common, but .com is, and Frank Zaccari at gmail is .com is pretty straightforward. And frankly, if you really want to connect with either one of us listening to this podcast or watching the replay, you need to be connected with us. Be connected with us on Be Connected, because frankly, I've got thousands and thousands of connections myself on all the platforms. And I'm telling everybody, if you really want to talk to me, if you really want to start building a relationship, you either got to show up in person at my networking groups that I run here in Dallas, or be connected to me on Be Connected. And that helps me make sure that I have the intentional collaboration that we have. So, well, this has been a beautiful journey, Frank. We went a little longer than some, but I felt that it was well worth the time, and I am serious about us creating a potential show around the wellness space. And I'm not a doctor, an MD either, but I got plenty of them in my network, and we might be able to share some things going forward. So, but we'll do that. Well, this is going to be we're going to land the plane for this episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And I encourage you to join us next Thursday at 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific, like Frank and other places, or noon Eastern, and for the next episode live of Warrior versus Zombie. And you'll find us audio on all podcasting platforms. So with that, let's hear the final segment of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There, and we'll be back next week with Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.